Hello, I'm Craig Alford from Titan Lithium. It is CDSG on the OTC markets. I'm a geologist. I'm also the CEO of the company. My experience has been over the last 40 years worldwide. I've worked in 34 countries. I've been involved in a lot of commodities, copper, gold, you name it. But in the last 8 years, I've been focused on lithium.
Brilliant. Well, Craig, thanks for coming on board. News story to us. So excited. We always love news stories. So lithium, obviously very topical at the moment, but barring the kind of price reset across the board, but equities seems to be having a good time of it. Tell me a little bit about what you guys have set out to do. What are you trying to be?
All right. Well, I mean, we're setting out to be an explorer for lithium and hopefully have found potentially the world's largest deposit. We originally started off in Nevada, looking at the playa basins there, like a lot of other companies have focused on. We have a part of the American Lithium TLC project, being within their claim boundary. But, sort of looking globally, we focused on an area where I believed that the volcanism, the setting was very conducive for lithium deposition.
Where are we?
Okay, well, we're in Tanzania. A lot of people know the country for Mount Kilimanjaro, the beautiful wildlife, obviously, but it's also a mineral-rich country. It's pretty much known for gold. Anglo-Ashanti, Barrick are there. However, there are some pegmatite lithium explorers like Liontown there, but we're looking at the clay-hosted deposits, which no one has paid attention to. So,
but talk to me about okay. But first of all, let's kind of talk about Tanzania, because I think people need to understand a little bit about the kind of jurisdictional risk component. I've worked there in banking a long time ago. Really nice, friendly jurisdiction, and the government very amenable to foreign direct investment. But so how did you end up with this asset? Tell me a little bit more about that. Why Tanzania?
Well, I mean, number one, I have a friend there. He's a professional engineer. He's worked in Tanzania for the last 14, 15 years, and he is addicted to prospecting. So there's never a weekend where he's not out cracking some rock and then usually showing me what he's found. And one day he came upon a very interesting high-grade lithium sample. And having worked together for a short time in the Nevada basins, he said, hey, what's this giant basin? Let me sample it. I mean, he just literally went out and he drove along for about 14 kilometers and sampled along his way, sent me the results. And I got on a plane and came to see this prospect, and we've expanded it substantially since then. So it's a novel discovery.
In what sense?
Well,
in what sense is it novel?
If you've tried to research lithium in Africa, every single company, every single scientific paper is typically focused on the lithium within pegmatite. Whereas, in a way, these lithium sedimentary deposits, the clay-hosted ones, are fairly new. The models that are in the Sonora deposit in Mexico and the Thacker Pass perhaps are setting the standards. But there are others along the spectrum, and we feel like we've also discovered a very significant one.
Right, but you're talking about clays here. Like, I mean, people are kind of, I guess, used to the brine stories, the hard rock stories out of South America, and with the hard rock of Australia. But in terms of the clays, we've got Thacker Pass as an example. So it's a very technical metal. What's kind of giving you the confidence that this is indeed what you should be going for, other than obviously the sheer scale of it? Technically, how does this thing get cracked?
Basically, lithium comes onto the earth in just limited ways in an economic fashion. Typically, we've looked at brines in South America. We've looked at lithium with pegmatites, but this new model is such that they are collecting within, again, restricted basins similar to brines, but within the volcanic sedimentary package within those restricted basins.
Okay.
And it's a layer cake. So in terms of the morphology of deposits, they're very tabular. They're very conducive to an open pit model without much waste, compared to, say, a pegmatite, where you end up having 7-to-1 waste ore ratio. So I think they're really viable sort of new types of deposits that are being found worldwide.
Right. So, coming back to kind of what you set out to do, I'm intrigued about the model here because juniors. The deal is you raise money, you do some stuff, you raise money, you do some stuff, and all the time kind of trying to improve the value of the company and increase the share price, etc. But it can be a value destroyer too. So you're explorers. So where do you take this through to? What do you need to present to market or to a strategic investor to kind of increase the value of this company?
Yeah, sure. To be quite frank, I mean, the junior explorers are typically the ones who take the risk, go out in the middle of nowhere and drill and explore, and then the seniors come along and buy you. So it's likely a termination eventually of our business model to be bought. I think even in the last 5 months, you can see the medium-sized fish are gobbling up the small fish. The big fish are gobbling up the medium-sized fish. The automotive sector is now getting involved directly with deposits. Ford is directly getting involved in deposits in Quebec, Canada. GM sunk a lot of money, $650 million, into the Thacker Pass deposit. So as we develop and as we expand and get the message out, we should be able to see, somebody lining up at our door, possibly waiting to invest. And then the big companies like Albemarle and SQM, they've been a little hurt by the nationalization in Chile, so they might be looking for new jurisdictions to invest in that are more mining friendly and willing to do deals. Yeah. Recently, Tesla did a deal in Tanzania for anode material, which is graphite and stuff like this. So the country is opening up. The VP of the U.S. did visit Tanzania. I think it was March. I may be forgetting my dates, but she actually spoke about critical battery metals during her time there. So I think this is really timely time for us to be getting the message out that we have potentially a world-class lithium deposit here.
Well, yeah, you make an interesting point with regards to Chile nationalization. I mean, I think it's in terms of lithium, I guess it's slightly old news, but in terms of those companies' desire to kind of de-risk their jurisdictional exposure, for sure they are having conversations at the moment. And also with regards to how investable is Africa, it has normally sort of been lent into by China, but you see with obviously with Tesla looking inward to Africa. Do you think Africa is becoming more investable, more attractive to North American stories?
I do. I mean, first of all, Africa has a bad tendency to get painted with one brush. There are many different countries in Africa. The three leading sort of mining companies, countries, I should say, are South Africa, Ghana, and Tanzania. Zimbabwe has come a long way within the lithium sector. Tanzania is an English-speaking country. It's got a new leader who seems to be very interested in getting the country back up on its feet. After COVID, it was hurt a lot. The tourism industry was hurt a lot. And the mining sector has always been a strong backbone of its economy. As I mentioned, big mining companies like Anglo Ashanti are there, Barrick is there. So it's always had its head screwed on straight with mining. It actually adopted a Canadian mining code rather than try to invent one like a lot of other developing nations do.
Right, and if I come back to the kind of question around what you're trying to do, yes, get taken out by one of the bigger players, bigger balance sheet. It's a big project. Your press releases have been good at kind of communicating grades, etc. So the technical issue becomes the problem of whoever comes in, whether in whatever form they come into an asset like this. But for you, between now and then, what else do you think you need to kind of again lay out in terms of the information available to them to make these discussions, not just in the data room, but in terms of what the market sees, the market facing component? How much more time and money do you need to spend doing that?
We're currently, we have sort of two-sided how we're doing things. We're cleaning up our American company, which we've had to do to become completely SEC compliant and SEC reporting. We're also looking over to potential new markets like Australian. The Australian exchange has been very red hot with regards to junior lithium explorers. And of course, we've constantly been pressing the project forward. I don't really think the message is out yet that we have something of the scale never really seen before and of grades that are, almost to the point of being a pegmatite grade. Currently, if you take a look on our website, we have a comparison against Manhattan for the Titan 1 project. And it just let people know that within just the high grade area, the red section, you could fit 11 Thacker Pass pits inside that. I mean, that's how big this thing is. And the Thacker Pass pit is a 40-year mine life pit. So this thing is absolutely enormous. So if it continues of this size and grade, I think it's very critically important to the entire industry. This is like finding Saudi Arabia.
Right. But you've got a job to do before you can sort of, with the market, can understand that, and I'm trying to understand what that is with regards to, because there comes a point where junior companies, with some who are fortunate enough, have big projects. It's big enough. You've said the grades are good enough. But so how do you make a move through the phases? Do we need to kind of get through the economic study phases, or does a large group come in not need that because they're going to do their own evaluations? How does it work?
I think for comfort, we will go out and be, what we try to do is, even though we haven't published a compliant report yet, I'm a 43101 qualified person. So everything I do is following those steps. So the next step, we'll get an independent geologist and we'll be able to produce a 43101 or JORC compliant report. And I think that's the foundation that a larger company would want before they step over and come visit. They would need to see that.
But just one 43101 compliant report, or again, are you trying to work out the economics of this as well, as opposed to just say, here's what we think we've got?
We've got drilling planned for this year. So we'll have a modest drill program, but I mentioned before, these things are kind of layer cakey. So they're very conducive to getting to what's called an inferred stage, which is your initial stage. To go into an indicated or measured, proven probable, it takes a lot more drilling, takes a lot more tightly spaced drilling. So we'll be able to go in and have fairly wide space drilling and build an inferred resource within 2023. So that will be the next real big step for the company to go from, okay, we have a two-dimensional body right now. We need that third dimension to make this really
right. But I guess what I'm trying to get at, Craig, is about trying to understand your model, because it doesn't matter what the model is; it just needs to be explained, and and for you to be able to point to where it has worked in the past, doing it this way. If it's a kind of we're not going to go and raise a whole ton of money and burn through cash doing stuff we don't need to do, because we know, either through conversations in industry or conversations elsewhere, that we only need to take it to X point, and therefore we don't need to raise and spend a lot of money. We know what the market wants, and if it's short on lithium, we're a good option, and we can start those conversations, maybe use someone else's balance sheet, someone else's money, and we're looking for a JV partner initially, or just a small strategic investment, with a view to, them spending money. But so how are you, again, picturing it? I guess it's early days, but you must have a view on this.
Yeah, it is early days. It's a great question. We do intend a money raise. We've got one in the pipelines. And what we're trying to do, though, is only raise the capital needed to take us to the next stage. I'm not really interested in raising $10 million. I don't need to do that. The drilling is relatively cheap. It costs around $200 a meter. The depth of our holes may be about 150 meters, so they're not quite expensive, those drill holes. We can conduct, a very measured grid spaced, maybe 250 meters apart. So we can cover a lot of ground and bring it to that maiden inferred resource that we're interested in bringing to the market. and getting, again, at that stage, the valuation should be much higher. So again, not much dilution to raise enough money to bring it to the next stage. However, regarding to running off and selling the project, we would like to build real value for shareholders before we attempt to do that, because I think it's imperative for us to show this thing really does have world-class potential. And, you want to be valued on that rather than just 10% of the project being covered and getting, basically 10 cents on the dollar for your valuation.
Understood. And hopefully well understood by people listening to and watching this video too. So it's kind of good to kind of clear up where, are you good custodians of their cash? So it sounds like yes, we can be sensible about this. So it just listening to this, so it feels like you've kind of got a tiger by the tail, and it's really now a case of going through the phases for you to show a strategic that this can be what you think it can be, and also more importantly, show the market that what you've got is what you think you've got. So this next 12 months, quite important for you. I mean, how do you see that playing out?
Yeah, I mean, we three large items are happening. Corporate cleanup, and perhaps a listing on an exchange, which should really give value to the company. Obviously, the geologic process, it's really just a 1, 2, 3 step process. We've examined the area. We haven't quite contained where the anomaly ends yet. We'll continue to be working on finally identifying where the anomaly truly ends. We'll pick a section. We've already got a section in mind for drilling, which is obviously the higher grade section that extends for many kilometers in every direction. So those steps are fairly simple. We're also going to do in parallel, take some of the material we've already got. We could do some bulk leach tests and see if it's how conducive it is for lithium extraction with even the material we found so far. So that'll be a very interesting step, because if all you did right now is push the alluvium, that it's very rich within the alluvium, that just sits upon the hard rock. That could also be a major mine in itself. If you just bulldozed that into piles, you would have over 300 million tons of material. So that's another big step for us, all within reach in 2023. So stepping into 2024, we'll probably expand that drill program to increase the resource size, and hopefully be in a much larger capex for the company at that time.
Okay, no, I appreciate that, Craig. Look, you're also in DC at the moment, along with a few other kind of battery metal company CEOs, to listen to what the US politicians and others have to say on the subject. Obviously, and I referenced the fact that the commodity prices have come off a little bit, so for lithium since October last year. But the general mood of the nation, what are these politicians trying to find out? What are they now owning in terms of narrative? And what do you want to get out of the session over there?
I mean, I guess the ones that have spoken so far, they're very positive about America being sort of on a catch-up phase with this market. I just listened to a talk where they compared themselves against China, and obviously China has 76% of production where they have 6%. So America right now has a large tax incentive. It has the Inflation Reduction Act to push companies to build here rather than simply buy batteries offshore and stick them in their vehicles. But this is sort of like building grain silos without the infrastructure to bring the grain in. So another big aspect is getting mines online and getting them into the supply chain, because you can't just turn on a mine tomorrow. There's a lot of permitting. There's a lengthy process where the project goes through, even in just resource reserve calculations. So a lot of them are in remote locations, like in northern Quebec. I'm working on a project there, actually. But, all of these things have to come in together, like building highways or power to some of these remote locations. for them to even expect these gigafactories to work. So it's a very complex issue, and I know that some projects have gotten rather large line of credits. There's a project in Nevada. The federal government here offered a $700 million line of credit that actually goes on to $1 billion if they need it. So those may be incentives in the works. I was just listening to the head of the Department of Energy here, and he's talking about grants and money available for viable projects. So it's going to be a very interesting decade for this energy transition, and hopefully projects like ours will, someone's going to be like, we're too big to be ignored. I feel so. Zimbabwe has been very active with lithium, but however, the government has decided that they don't want to just be selling off raw materials. So they're sort of incentivizing, pretty much for the most part, it's Chinese that are there to build on-site processes, not just to ship off the concentrate. So we intend to hopefully build plants for lithium carbonate to be produced. So pretty much battery-ready materials to be produced in country. I think it's the smart way to go. Plus, you're also getting a big lift in the price rather than the raw commodity compared to the price of lithium carbonate. There's a big difference, a big value jump upward.
Well, it's interesting to see how the rest of this year plays out. Thank you very much for sharing your story. New lithium story, new kid on the block. Do come back on and let us know how you get on.
Okay, awesome. Great talking to you.